Hi everyone, I'm Mobina and I'm a disability attorney. Most people think the hard part is winning disability benefits. And yes, that part matters. But what a lot of people don't realize is that some of the most expensive mistakes happen after you've been approved, especially when it comes to Medicare. Today, I want to talk to you through Medicare After Disability Award, what parts A, B, C, and D actually mean, and why making the wrong choice can cost you thousands. I've also invited Jason Hutchins, a licensed insurance professional, to help explain how coverage works in the real world. Jason is a longtime friend and an expert in this field. One of the biggest misconceptions I see is this. People think Medicare starts when they get approved for disability. That's usually not true. If you're approved for SSDI, Medicare generally starts 24 months after your entitlement date, not your approval date. That waiting period catches a lot of people off guard. What's the difference? Your entitlement date is usually 5 months after your disability onset date. So even if you win your case 2 years after you applied, Medicare doesn't start from your approval. It starts from the earlier entitlement date. For some people, that means Medicare is already available or kicks in very soon. For others, there's still a gap they need to plan for. And if you're on SSI instead of SSDI, Medicare usually doesn't apply at all. That's Medicaid territory, which is a completely different program. So Jason, you're an expert, and I really wanted to know, what questions do people usually pose to you during this 24-month waiting period?
I would say the number one question would be, how much is Medicare going to cost me? The number two question would be, what do I do about the costs that Medicare does not cover?
Right, like what programs would kick in. Okay, so I guess the next question would be, what coverage options exist beyond Medicare for the disabled people?
Right. So until they get on Medicare, that 25th month, you're pretty much stuck with Marketplace, it can be expensive. Now, there are programs out there like Medicaid, and they can apply for Medicaid if the income matches and assets match up, then that's a good option to look into.
Another thing is, are there any exceptions to the 24-month rule that our viewers should know about?
For sure. So if you have a disability because of ALS, you can actually start Medicare same time you start your Social Security benefits. If you have end-stage renal disease, there's a 4-month waiting period.
Let's break down the basics. Original Medicare has two parts, A and B. Part A is hospital coverage. It covers inpatient hospital stays, skilled nursing facility care, hospice, and some home health services. Most people don't pay a monthly premium for Part A if they or their spouse paid Medicare taxes for at least 10 years. But there are still deductibles and limits. Part B is outpatient care, doctor's visits, outpatient procedures, lab work, imaging, physical therapy, durable medical equipment. Part B does have a monthly premium. And here's the kicker. It only covers about 80% of approved costs. That remaining 20%, there's no cap on it. If you have a major illness or injury, that 20% can add up to thousands of dollars. I really want to talk to you a little bit about the current Part B premium amounts and what that looks like.
Okay, so the Part B premium usually goes up every year. Currently in 2026, it's $202 per month.
Wow.
And that will come out of the Social Security check as well.
Okay, and what about the Part A deductibles? What do those look like?
So in a Part A deductible, it's gone up again like it does every year. Currently in 2026, you're looking at $1,736 just to go to the hospital. Doesn't matter if it's 1 day, 5 days, you're going to pay the $1,736 up front.
And so having said all of that, walk us through what that 20% actually looks like in real dollars for the average person.
So Medicare covers 80%, they're responsible for 20%. So let's say you go to the doctor visits $200, they're going to pay 20% of that, which is $40. If you go and get lab services, labs could be $500, you're going to pay 20% of that. If you are going to a specialist, they're charging $400 for a visit, you're paying 20% of that.
And Jason, what happens if someone delays Part B enrollment?
So in this case, you won't get a late penalty because you will automatically be enrolled in Medicare Part A and B because of the disability. So that is one thing that we should not worry about in this particular case with disability cases on your end.
Medicare Advantage or Part C is an alternative to original Medicare. It's offered by private insurance companies, and it bundles Part A and B, and usually Part D into one plan. These plans can look attractive because they have lower premiums and sometimes zero premiums. Extra benefits like dental vision, hearing, gym memberships. But here's what concerns me with people with disabilities. These are managed care plans. They have networks. They require prior authorizations. And if you travel or move, your coverage might not work outside your service area. For someone with complex medical needs who sees multiple specialists, these restrictions can create real problems. So Jason, when does Medicare Advantage actually make sense for someone?
As far as going on disability and automatically being on Medicare, it's one of their only options to cover a lot of these costs, to keep max out-of-pockets down, give them extra benefits. So generally speaking, it makes a lot of sense to get on Advantage while you're on disability.
And in your opinion, what are some issues that people should be on the lookout for?
A few things that you have to be prepared for are pre-authorizations will come up, referrals to specialists will come up. You will have some copays when you go into the hospital if you go see your specialist, for instance.
And then what are your thoughts on switching back to original Medicare?
So when it comes to Medicare and a supplement compared to Medicare Advantage, there's pros and cons to all of it. It really comes down to an individual person and their needs on which way we would want to go with that.
And I think at that point, people can just contact you directly and you'd give them all the wisdom.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you walk us through how out-of-pocket maximums work in this area?
Yeah, so as far as Medicare Advantage, you're going to have copays with seeing specialists, MRIs, CAT scans. If you go to the hospital, all of those copays add up to a max out-of-pocket. And all of these plans will have different max out-of-pockets. There's HMOs, there's PPOs, and all of them are different. So with the max out-of-pockets, with each individual plan, this one might have a $4,000 max out-of-pocket. This one over here might have a $6,000 maximum out-of-pocket.
So it's really a case-by-case analysis.
Yes.
One thing that surprises people is that original Medicare does not cover prescription drugs at all. That's where Part D comes in. These are standalone prescription drug plans offered by private insurers. Every plan has a formulary, which is a list of covered drugs. But can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. So every company has their own formulary. Each company will have a list of prescriptions they cover. With that being said, just because it's not in their formulary doesn't mean they will not cover it. There are exceptions to every prescription, every company. So let's say your doctor wants you to take a certain brand name drug. It's not in their formulary, whatever plan you're on. The doctor just has to ask for that exception, and that company will cover that prescription.
Oh, wow, that's very helpful information.
Some companies will cover Mounjaro, some companies will not. Same thing with the exception. If it's not in their formulary and you have to take it because something else doesn't work, then they will make the exception to cover that.
If you don't enroll when you're first eligible and don't have other credible coverage, you'll pay a late enrollment penalty for as long as you have Part D. That penalty is permanent. So Jason, talk to me a little bit about the coverage phases.
So in the past, there were several phases. They did away with the catastrophic phase. In the past, you could spend as much as $8,000 out of pocket for prescriptions in 1 year. The government finally came in, took that out. Now the max you can pay for 2026 is $2,100. With that being said, they did raise some of the deductibles, where in the past they didn't have a deductible. But overall, it has saved many of my clients money by not having to pay $8,000 out of pocket for a prescription.
For sure. And so how about extra help for, let's say, low-income subsidy programs?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't qualify for Medicaid, and so they can apply for extra help. And what the extra help helps with is the co-pays on their prescriptions, their deductibles, and if there's any premiums attached to that, it will cover that as well. So it's a step above Medicaid, when it comes to qualifications.
Remember that 20% that Part B doesn't cover? Medigap policies, also called Medicare supplement plans, exist specifically to fill those gaps. These are standardized plans labeled by letter, Plan G, Plan N, etc. They can cover deductibles, coinsurance, and that uncapped 20%. For people with chronic conditions or complex medical needs, Medigap can be the difference between manageable costs and financial disaster. So Jason, one question that I think a lot of people have is, when people are enrolled in a Medicare Advantage program, are they stuck with that?
So that's a great question. Once you sign up on it, normally it will start on the month that they start their Social Security benefits. There are two open enrollment periods. One's called annual enrollment period, the other one's called open enrollment period. So anytime between October and December 7th, they can switch for a January 1st start. They get to test drive for 3 months until March 31st to make another change. Now, once the April 1st date comes up, now they are stuck on it for the rest of the year. But with that being said, there are some chronic condition plans that you can switch any month of the year.
Some people qualify for both Medicare and Medicaid. We call that dual eligible beneficiaries. If you qualify for both, Medicaid can help pay your Medicare premiums, deductibles, and prescription costs. This can make a huge difference for people on fixed incomes. The rules for qualifying are based on income and vary by state. So it's worth checking even if you're not sure if you qualify. So Jason, how do people find out if they're dual eligible?
They do have to apply for Medicaid. It is based off of income and asset. People don't realize that. They cannot have more than, I believe, $3,000 in assets. They need to be very careful, probably talk to an attorney about this, maybe put their house or cars into a trust.
And Jason, if people do get on Medicaid, are there dual plans for this?
Yes. So usually with someone that has Medicare and Medicaid, each company has a dual plan that they offer. They come with amazing benefits. There's no premiums, there's no co-pays on anything. So no matter if it's the hospital, the doctor, everything is going to be zeroed out. Because whatever the plan doesn't cover, Medicaid is going to pick that up.
As far as getting help applying or determining eligibility, can people just contact you directly?
Yes, I've helped many clients get on Medicaid. It's a really long process, maybe 10-page application. They have to get bank account information to them. There's a lot that goes into it, and a lot of people are lost. So I will assist in getting that done for them.
Let's talk about the mistakes I see most often. Waiting too long to enroll. Missing enrollment windows can mean penalties that last forever, or losing access to coverage options entirely. Choosing plans based only on premium. A zero premium Advantage plan might cost you more in the long run if you can't see the doctors you need or if the medications aren't covered. Assuming Medicare covers everything, it doesn't. Vision, dental, hearing, long-term care, and most prescription drugs under original Medicare alone. Never reviewing coverage. Plan formularies change. Network change. Premiums change. What works last year might not work this year. Jason, what are some costly mistakes you've seen over and over?
Besides the ones you just named, I think a big one would be they go to a doctor and they're not in network. Maybe a dentist, they're not in network. They think they are. Maybe they were even told that the doctor was in network, but they're really not. Now they're responsible for that bill.
And Jason, when and how should people review coverage annually?
So with my clients, each year during the annual enrollment period, we sit down, we go through their current plan versus what's coming out for next year. That's a good time to do that.
And so, Jason, what are some free resources that people can use to navigate this process?
Okay, as you know, there's a lot of websites out there that's very confusing. There's carrier websites, there's Medicare.gov websites. That's kind of where I come in as an agent, is we kind of simplify all that. We put it together. We work with all the carriers and the government, and we kind of know what's good and bad, and we narrow it down to your individual scenario.
So winning disability benefits is step one. Protecting your health care and finances is step two. If you're newly approved or approaching Medicare eligibility, don't guess. Ask questions. Know your deadlines, and get guidance from people who understand both the legal and insurance side of this. Jason, thank you for being here and helping explain this process. If you need help navigating this process, feel free to reach out to Zen Law Firm. We will also include Jason's information below for you to reach out whenever you need. Thank you so much for all this helpful information. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me today. This is my passion. I've been doing this over a decade. I'm here to take all the confusion out of this process for you.
Skip the websites, skip the confusing forms. Just reach out to Jason. He'll take care of you. We'll see you guys next time.